Hello, and welcome to Artinject Conversations brought to you by Studio Artinject. Artinject Conversations is intended to break the fourth wall and bring you into the virtual room where two creatives talk about being an artist, running a creative business, and everything in between. Through the artist interview series, I hope to highlight the different ways of being an artist and the multitude of creative entrepreneurial journeys. I am Shimona Ghosh, your host, artist, and founder of Studio Artinject. I create watercolor paintings on paper and stoneware ceramic home decor. I also teach online watercolor art classes and offer one-on-one heartstorming sessions for artists and creative entrepreneurs. So without further ado, let's get started. Hello and welcome to Artinject Conversations. For the third episode of Artist Interview Series, we have Michelle Schenker. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you for having me, Shimona.
You're welcome. I'm excited to have you. Okay, so for those of you who don't know Michelle, let me introduce her to you. Michelle is a watercolor and mixed media artist living in North Carolina, USA, with her husband and two rescue dogs. She loves being outdoors and spending time in nature. She also loves hiking, yoga, and traveling. When she's not creating art, she's busy being the digital marketing wizard for Cover Story Media, which is an online publishing company co-founded by her and her husband. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, that's perfect.
Okay. Starting with the first question, can you trace your journey from how you got started with your art to how it transitioned into a business?
During the pandemic, when we were all stuck at home, I got bored like so many other people, and different friends invited me to different, online classes and things. And I decided to take a class with my friend Christy called Creative Catharsis. And it was an online class, but it was given by a local artist, Beth Glover. And she was a watercolor artist, or is a watercolor artist. Yeah. And she basically made this class for class is an oversell of what it is. It wasn't really very instructive so much as she had a project in mind, would explain it to us and how you do it. And then you kind of did it as therapy, basically, because, at this time we were all rather stressed and fearful. And so it was a way, creative catharsis was just like a way to manage those feelings and emotions and use them in a different way. And I really loved the idea behind the class when I took it, but even more so, I fell in love with watercolors. So that day I took the class and really enjoyed it, but I didn't know that the next Sunday I would end up going again, and the next Sunday and the next Sunday. And then before I knew it, I had, bought nicer art supplies, and because the paper, I don't know how many people out there are watercolor artists, but the paper and the paints, they really matter. You can feel you can feel like a failure without them, right?
Yeah.
So it didn't take me long before I was like, okay, I need to at least invest a little bit in this because I am really enjoying it. And signed up for Skillshare and, just kind of went down that rabbit hole, and also started an art account on Instagram. And I heard a lot about these 100-day projects people were doing. And so I did a 100-day challenge with myself starting the day after Christmas that year, and created for 100 days. And that really helped me develop my skills and sort of, I don't know if I want to call it my voice, but it helped me find, my passion for nature and being outside was really something that spoke to me, and I was able to display via my art, or express via my art. And so landscapes was really sort of what I was leaning into at that time.
Yeah, I did notice that. And I kind of took note of the fact that all the work that you create, they have some element of nature in it. And that comes across through your work.
That's good, because that's what I like to express. So yeah. And then in summer of 2022, so about a year and a half later, I guess, I joined another challenge on Instagram called ICAD, which is Index Card a Day Challenge. Yeah. I don't know, but you use little index cards and you just create on those, and there's a prompt for each day. And I decided to do that for whatever reason. And that a lot of the artists that do iCAD are more into collage. And so I ended up just sort of weaving watercolor, a little bit of collage, playing, and really getting into that. And what I realized was something that I did as a child and that I've done my whole life, which is that I love sort of upcycling products. So like as a kid, I had a business with my next door neighbor that was making dyes out of things in the yard. So like strawberries or beets or whatever, like making these little dyes. And no one bought them except for our mothers, but it sort of speaks to what I'm loving now, which is really anything that can either be brought from nature. So like I've made recently black walnut ink from black walnuts that I collected in the woods behind me. And yeah, just getting into all the upcycling of papers and ribbons that I collect. And now I'm a paper hoarder officially. Everywhere I go, I find paper. And even I was in Barcelona a couple of months ago, and there was like a sticker that was on the bottom of my shoe that I found when we got home. And I was like, oh, it's from the museum we went to. I should use this in my collage, which is so gross. But that's just sort of what I love now, is finding new uses for old things and repurposing.
I do get it. And I feel like artists have this tendency to just hoard in general. Like we like to find beauty in the randomest of things and see how we can make something out of it. Like the amount of random cardboard boxes I have, differently shaped. And I tell my mother, I'll make something someday out of it. What, I don't know, but I have to kind of collect it.
Yes. It's a dangerous habit.
Yeah. How did you transition into creating a business around your art? Like it started off as a way of therapy during COVID, but what shifted that you decided to do this professionally?
So I still work full time too. I'll start with that. But my background is marketing and branding, and a lot of branding is storytelling. And I've kind of found my art to be that in a lot of ways, storytelling for myself, for others who maybe don't have a voice or whatever it might be. So it was kind of, in some ways, a natural transition. I just saw the parallels. And also I'm a business-minded person. Like I have my MBA, I went to business school, I was a business undergrad. So like my brain just works that way. And so I don't know if it would have been a natural transition for all people, but for me, it made sense to try at least to make it a business. And so I'm trying to think of what the first thing was I sold. Oh, I know. That wasn't to my family. That's a little different, but I was in a local art show. My brother-in-law moved to town 2 years ago. And so he's an artist, he's an oil painter. And I introduced him to a lot of these local art show opportunities, but I wasn't ready, Yeah. And so he started doing them. I was like, oh, I could do this too. And so I submitted some to various shows, and one of them, something was hanging on the wall and someone apparently bought it at the opening reception, and I still don't know who that person was. And it's such a weird, like you're like, yay, it's sold, but at the same time you're like, ooh, my heart is hanging on someone's wall. Who is that person? So I'm still curious if anyone out there bought that Winston-Salem skyline painting at Red Dog Gallery, let me know. I'm curious. But that was the first sale. And then a good friend of mine, Sadie, helped me build my website, and my whole business world basically is on websites. So I'm also a little nervous about selling things on Instagram because you just don't know who you're going to get sometimes. So it's been a good thing, that and Etsy, and as well as local shows, to be able to more control who's buying your things and how they're purchasing things.
That's true. It's interesting to see that you actually care about whose hands is the art going into, because on one hand, like you said, you are very business savvy. Like that's where your brain works, which is so exciting because most artists don't like the business side of things. So it's exciting to find somebody who does because even I love it. And on one side, there's that. And on the other side, you do care about who is taking that art and if they're going to love it the same way that you do, which is
Yes.
very interesting to me. Yeah.
Yes, it is an interesting conundrum, I guess, for artists.
Yeah. So since last year you have, like you said, you've kind of transitioned from 2020 to 2022 into collage from watercolor, like more of collage making than watercolor. And you said that what brought about that transition is, of course, taking part in the ICAD challenge. But I have noticed that there's this I feel like you found your voice through collage, and that is my perspective. I'm not sure how it is for you. I would love to know how it was for you. But I felt like through collage, you kind of found your voice and expression. Like you said, I can actually see that every piece of art you make is telling a story, and it's like these short, sweet stories that every piece of collage is saying, and that's very unique. I haven't come across anybody who works that way. Like, and it's not complicated. It's something really simple, but I feel a connection to every piece you make, which is very interesting to me. Like you being able to do that and actually creating so many stories in the form of art, which is a skill, I would say. Like that's very unique to that I have seen. So since you have such a distinct language when it comes to collage making, I'm curious to know what finding your voice through that medium has looked like for you.
Well, first of all, thank you. That is the greatest compliment, to know that one's work is speaking to others. So thank you so much for saying that and for expressing it. I appreciate it, Shimona.
You're welcome.
As far as, I agree with you. I definitely feel that I've found my voice. I think it's multiple reasons. I think it's also just time of feeling like, okay, maybe I'm not an imposter. Maybe this is really part of who I am. I've been doing it for 3 years now, and I can call myself an artist.
Yeah.
I did it. You can do it too. But it's hard, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Especially like you and me, like we've been in more professional settings our whole careers. And so it's, and a lot of people out there have. And so it's a real challenge. It's also kind of an identity crisis at first. I'm like, I don't know, am I an artist? Does anyone else think I'm an artist? I don't know. Maybe I'm just doing art over here, but I think it's time is part of that. I don't think it's just collage, but or that transition into mixed media. But I do think that there's definitely an aspect of that, as I spoke to with my childhood and so forth, and like all the things that I've spoken to my whole life, going to thrift stores and finding these special things and then using them in my art has really been an amazing gift and an amazing sort of walk down memory lane, whether it's for me personally or for someone else that lived this life and had these things. So there's kind of, for me, a natural storytelling in that of like, where was this thing when you're using something that's not bought from Blick or Jackson's.
Yeah.
And you know, there is more. Like I've gotten really into jelly plating and creating a lot of my own hand painted papers, and same thing, like there's a story in that I'm building it, right? Like the color palette or the design or the texture I'm choosing, or a lot of times I'll use leaves that I pick up on walks. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun, I think, to explore all the different passions that I have in my life and bring them out into light, into the world, which is also scary. You know, because like I said, your heart is going out there into the world. I'm giving you a very long-winded answer to your question, but the other thing is that the art is very helpful for channeling and processing my emotions. So I've found over the years, I mean, obviously a lot of complex things are going on in the world and tragic things are going on in the world right now, and we could dwell on that, and it'd be easy to do that and to feel hopeless and sad and frustrated and all the things, but trying to make a choice every day of beauty, and how can we bring more of that into this world, because there isn't a lot of it right now. So I'm really sort of using it as a way to channel my emotions, but also hopefully help others who may see something in my voice that is helpful for them.
Yeah. Yeah. What I'm taking away from this is basically just trying to find something that is deeply personal to us and working with that instead of thinking about, okay, what art will sell or what will work, just creating from a space of, okay, what is helping me and what works for me, which we, especially in this age when everything is about parading our lives on social media, and similarly that follows into art also, that everything needs to be for show. In that time and space, I think it's a very important reminder to ourselves to create for ourselves, because that's basically what art was meant for. And when we do that, you're a great example of that. It will come through and people can see that when you're putting your heart into it.
Yeah. It's a challenge though, right? Because you also do want to sell.
Yeah.
So like I was at a show recently. I wasn't showing anything, but I was talking to another artist, and she had these beautiful, she did a lot of illustrations and like nature illustrations, mushrooms and things. And she had made like the state shape with mushrooms. And it was really cute. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cute. She's like, you and everyone else think so. Like, that's what sells. She's like, but all this other stuff is what I love to do. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have pieces like that too that are, very local to my area. And because she was in a different state, but very local to my area. And the same thing, it's like, that's what sells. So I have to have lots of that always at shows in order to make money, right?
Yeah.
But make it worthwhile. But the stuff that I really hope people will notice is the other stuff.
Hopefully we'll slowly get there. I don't remember where I heard this, but like this 80-20 rule of 8 or 70-30, something like that, of, making art for selling and then making art for yourself, having that balance that you have to make money. Yes, that's a very real thing. Plus, you also want to kind of feed your creativity alongside that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, like we talked about, for almost 12 years now, you've been working in the role of a digital marketer for Cover Story Media, an online publishing company that you've co-founded with your husband. And you have previous corporate brand marketing experience with various companies. And now, as a professional artist, you've established a beautiful community who love and support your work. Considering that you have this amazing background, what is some actionable advice that you can share with the artists as to how they can attract and nurture a community which resonates with their work and supports them by purchasing their work?
I don't know if these are going to be totally actionable, but they're tips. How about that? So we'll see. I think the first thing, which we really talked a lot about already during this interview, is to be authentically you. Like, don't be afraid to be who you are. And I think it's so easy to say, I want 20 likes or 200 likes, however many, I don't know. It depends on your following as to how many you might be possible, but we want more likes. And at the same time, like we were just saying, you also want to make the things that make your heart sing as the artist. And so I think really the 80-20 rule you were just talking about is probably a good one, of not being afraid to be authentically you at least 80% of the time, because, and hopefully the thing that sells came from your heart too. I know it did with me. So it's just, I don't want to make it over and over again. But it is me. It is very me. And so I think one thing would just not be afraid to be yourself and be confident in that, because it's hard in this world, but no one else is like you and no one else will make art like you. So embrace that. The second thing, goes right into what we were just talking about, which is just understanding there's trade-offs, between money making items and things that you love to make, and making sure you have time for both, because otherwise it's not going to feed your soul and keep you going.
Yeah.
Burnout's real, right?
That's so true. And I mean, I think we should talk more about money, like because it's not about money, but it's about all the things money makes possible. And it is how the world functions, and that's the reality we live in. So we have to kind of work with what we have.
Yes, exactly. I am lucky enough, blessed enough to have a full-time job that allows me to probably not spend as much time as I'd like on my art, but I get to spend time and money on my art because of that. I would say at this point, just to manage everyone's expectations, I'm probably paying for my own supplies with the revenue I'm making from my art. So I'm not going to get rich. I can't quit my day job, but I think that's pretty good. Being able to support your habit is a good thing.
And that's okay. I don't feel like we have to do just either have a day job or we can do both if that's what we like to and want to do.
Yes, agreed. I'm trying to think of how to say it, but saying thank you to your audience. Whether that's as a group saying, wow, I reached 700 followers, and so I'm going to say thank you and do a little giveaway, or whether that's just responding to comments, or whether that's on social media or an email or a text for someone that's local. Could be various different ways, but I think you don't build community if you don't participate in the community. So that's something that's been really important to me and has built trust over time. So yes, Jane, who commented on something yesterday and I've never heard of her, it would be easy to not reply to her because that's another thing on my to-do list, right? But Jane may become my customer in 6 months if I reply to her now and next week. And, so I think like any other business, right? Like it's important to build trust with customers and to create a relationship over time.
Yeah. You forget about that.
Wait, one more thing. Don't be afraid to toot your horn.
Yes, we need to hear that.
I don't have the horn, but
I definitely needed to hear that because I'm so it feels like, oh, how can I just, talk about my work? And something is always holding me back. It's been tough. Like every time I have a new collection, I will promote it once. And even when I'm doing it, I feel a little like, am I pushing too hard? Are people even interested?
Well, it is definitely a balance, right? Like you don't want to be overselly and always pushing things, but at the same time, if you don't ask, no one's going to do it. So,
yeah.
You have to be your best cheerleader.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of it. That comes with the time thing I was talking about earlier in regards to confidence too. It's harder at first than it is years later. So
yeah, it does get.
But don't be afraid even when you're new. Do it.
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing I think I was a part of this community, and the one big takeaway from that community was calling myself an artist even before I was ready to call myself an artist. And once I started doing that, I actually started believing it. Up until that point, it was like doubts, but every time I would say it, I would feel more confident saying it. So definitely, it does help in the beginning to recognize that if you're creating art, you're an artist. Simple as.
And I remember going to shows when I was first showing, 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. And I would stand in the corner with, not looking at anyone. And someone asked me a question. Oh, is that yours? Yep. Walk away. And it's the opposite of what I was just telling you guys to do. Engage. Talk to your customers. So yeah, it's hard when you're a baby artist to feel that confidence, but it does. Every time you say it, it feels better.
Yeah. So when I was doing my research for this podcast episode, I noticed that you have a history of doing philanthropic work. And this year you undertook an initiative called Art for Good. And it has been so inspiring to see what you did with this project with Katie Asorno. Can you share what prompted you to start this project and what has your experience been like with it?
A year ago, basically now. It was around the time, I don't know. No, that's not true. But about a year ago, it was Christmas. And, a lot of people are pushing, at least in the US, are pushing for you to donate to different organizations because our tax year ends at the end of the year. And so there's benefit, if you donate in the last, whatever. So it was on my mind about giving. And also during the holidays, while it's a wonderful time, you see a lot of sadness and people who don't have what I'm blessed enough to have. So I think it was just top of mind. And then with the war in the Ukraine and with Russia, and there was just a lot that was heavy on my heart. And because I do have a full-time job, I do have that ability to use my art for other things. I don't have to pay my bills with it. And so I thought a nice way to give back would be to create for different organizations that I believe in and or that values align with mine, and create art each month for different things. So the first month, for example, January of 2023 was for an organization that supports Ukrainian people. And the second month was for Black History Month. And so we gave to the NAACP. Just some examples. And Kathy was my roommate in college.
Wow.
So she reached out to me when she saw I was promoting this, when I first started talking about it. So it was in December. It hadn't started yet. And she said, I would really love to do something like this. Did you come up with this, or is it an organization that I can like sign up to help? And I was like, well, I made it up. So Art for Good is mine. So you can join. Yeah, that'd be great. So she joined me, and she looked at the list of organizations that I had for the year, and she agreed with them, had a couple of inputs about various things, and we just started. So we both agreed to make like 4 pieces each month. And they could be about the organization or the cause, or they could be independently beautiful, whatever. And Kathy is a collage artist as well, and her handle is @MimiWee. I will send that to you, Shimona.
I'll put it.
Anyone wants to follow her as well. But she's an amazing. It's funny because I found her through Instagram, through her art. Like I liked her art, and that's not her name. Like I didn't know it was Kathy.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
I know, and I wasn't my name at the time either, and so we didn't know who each other were, and then we figured it out. I don't even know how we figured it out. Maybe one of us posted a picture or something. But and then we're like, oh my gosh. So we hadn't talked in, I don't know, 20 years or something, and reconnected through our art and through Instagram, and then through this project. And the project was amazing. I mean, like just creating art so purposefully and being able to also work together with a friend. And like, it was just such a meaningful concept and idea. It was very exciting and very fun, but also obviously kind of heavy because you are creating for specific purposes. So we went full steam ahead through April. And so 4 months. And then we were both just kind of feeling like it was hard. Like it was really hard to, I mean, not that you shouldn't, you should absolutely spend the time to think about these things and to give back as you can and support. But it also can be quite heavy to be thinking about these things all month and really digging into them with your heart when you're creating art. So we kind of made the decision to take a break for the month of May, and that turned into the rest of the year. So we actually have not been doing Art for Good, but we are, in the fact that we still have some pieces available. So both of us have tabs on our websites, on our menus for Art for Good, where you can contribute. And basically what we did for it was you contribute directly to the organization and then show us your receipt. So we don't profit at all. And the individual, if they're in the US, they did not pay for shipping. If they were outside the US, then they would pay for shipping. But other than that, it's just a donation to the organization. So we still have that. And there are still a few pieces left. So if anyone's interested, please visit either of our websites. It's our respective art. So mine's not on hers and hers is not on my website. So you'll have to go to both websites.
Yeah, I will put the links. And I get what you mean by just a lot of things around us can become very heavy. And I remember when I started my art account, I had been inactive on my personal Instagram account for too long for this reason, because I was very active there. And by active, I mean like talking about social issues and all of that. And it got really exhausting. And I felt guilty kind of stopping, but I needed that time for myself. And I was like, I need to distance myself. And I know that sounds very privileged, but I felt like I had to distance myself to get back again, talking about those things and working towards those things. So that's very understandable. And I mean, I have not really created much art, which is a social commentary on things. And at least that's what I've noticed in the art scene here, is that kind of work is more appreciated, a social commentary on things through your art rather than just creating for the sake of creating. And for me, art has been that, like creating for the sake of creating. My voice, when it comes to using it for the issues surrounding us, I feel like it can have a separate outlet and it doesn't need to be through my art. So yeah. I like that you said that. It's completely okay to go through that and feel the need to distance yourself, and that's okay. Like, I just want people to know that's okay, because even I was there and I know how it feels.
Yeah, privilege. It's so true. Yeah, I'm lucky that I have that ability to take a break or to find another way to serve or support. But yeah, not everyone has that. So yeah, my heart goes out to those.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like what's more important is having the energy to actually, again, get back up and put your support towards those things. So it's really okay to, recharge and kind of come back with a greater impact. What do you have to say to artists who are contemplating using their art to support the causes that they believe in, but are unsure as to how to balance creating a profitable business with a charitable pursuits?
I think kind of what you just said in some ways in regards to I have not found my pieces that are social commentary to necessarily have more of a following, but there is definitely more extreme emotions around them, right?
Yeah.
And so that can translate to a sale, or that can translate to someone writing something not very nice in my comments.
Yeah.
So it's a risk. And I think, well, it depends on how evocative you get, but it can be a risk.
Yeah.
But you got to do it. It goes back to what we were talking about, like being authentic to you and who you are. And I mean, you don't have to do it. If you don't choose not to, don't do it. Make beautiful things and keep doing it, because we all need more beauty as well.
Definitely.
But I think when you show your desire to support something outside of yourself, that it shows you're not only in it for the money, and that there's more to you as an artist, and that, or as a person, really, that you're deeper and there's more to me than what you see on Instagram. And that has really connected with my audience, in that they know more of who I am as a person, what I stand for, what drives me, what I'm passionate about, and what I'm not so happy about in the world. And it also just reminds people that, yes, I'm going to push for a sale next week, but right now I'm focused on something else. So I think it makes you feel less like a salesman too, like more like a real person.
Yeah. That's true. And my pieces are not a social commentary, clearly. But then the way I thought I could maybe contribute is, I've decided that every collection I come up with, I'm going to donate a percentage of it to any organization that I believe in, and that'll be mentioned. But I've done the same with my butterfly totems collection. It's a very beautiful abstract butterfly collection, which has nothing to do.
Very beautiful, everyone. Go see it.
But I've decided to, donate 10% of whatever, every piece that I make towards an organization. And it's all detailed there. So there are different ways of going about it. It doesn't have to be just this one way of doing it and contributing.
I did the same. My first collection I created was national parks around the U.S., and I gave a portion of the proceeds to the
Yeah,
national park.
I remember that collection was very beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah, so there's lots of ways. If you have the ability, I would encourage you to find those passions and how you can share them with the world.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing with our audience what is one mindset block which you have personally overcome and believe has been a game changer for your art practice?
I think we've talked a lot about it already, but the not believing in myself as an artist, and not feeling like, I haven't talked about this, but not believing that my ideas are original. Like, and so, you scroll through Instagram, right? And and you see all this different art, and you can find your art starting to feel like other people's art. And just without even, it's not like I'm taking a tutorial. I was for a while when I was doing Skillshare classes. I was like, I have to stop because my art was like whoever I'd gone down that rabbit hole of that week. But so I don't have Skillshare anymore for this reason. But I hadn't thought about it, but that's probably a big thing, was like getting the skills, learning the things, and then having time to breathe as just me. Like, I'm just going to sit down with this piece of paper and I got to figure out what I'm going to do.
Yes.
So that probably, like, making that transition definitely was hard. I remember I had a couple of months where I was like not really making. So yeah, I think moving past that. How did I move past that? I guess just forcing myself to do it. I may have even been ICAD again, because this year I did ICAD again, and that, just that habit of creating every day.
Momentum.
It's hard, but it's very motivating.
It is. I remember even I felt at the end of last year that I am watching too many tutorials, and I felt like I'm losing my voice. So starting this year, even I said, I am not taking any online art classes this year. I'm going to focus on just creating work and then finding my voice through that instead of taking any more tutorials.
Yes, so true. It's a trap.
It is a trap. In the beginning, I feel like, of course, it was very important to learn through it. But that point in time when you realize that, okay, I need to transition from like looking at tutorials to just experimenting and finding out what works, it's very important to realize, like, catch yourself when it's dragging on for too long, that fails.
Yes, I was just telling you before the interview
Yeah.
that, like, right now I'm not feeling super motivated to create new work, but I'm playing a lot. So I think that's, for me, that's key too, like giving myself permission to just like not create for anyone else but me.
Yeah.
And just experimenting and having fun. And yeah, it's that's where I refined my passion and excitement and joy.
And the pieces or the body of work that you discover while doing that play is incredible. So it never goes to waste. It's not like it all ties together and all of it kind of compiles on top of each other.
Agreed.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap up this conversation?
I don't think so. Just remember to have confidence and be you.
Yeah. Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview. I appreciate you so much, and I'm so glad that we could have you here. And to our lovely listener, I want to say thank you for joining us for this conversation, and that you can find Michelle's work at her website, www.michelleschenker.com. And she's also present on Instagram at michelle.schenker.art. I'll put all the relevant links in the description, so no need to worry. You can find it there. And if our listeners want to connect and chat with you, what's the best place to connect?
Probably Instagram.
Yeah. And do you want to share what you're working on at the moment or about any exciting projects that are in the pipeline?
I can show you something. It's the play story that we were just having, but I just like made this little book.
Oh,
And so
wow.
it's like collaged on the front, and then all the pages are painted. I talked about doing painted papers, so these are some of the papers I've been making. And so just finding, I mean, obviously this is not finished art by any stretch. Well, kind of, the book is, but yeah, I'm just playing right now.
I
I'm trying some
really
new things.
like handmade books, and when it's just so precious to look at, and it's beautiful.
Yes. Thank you. And thank you for having me, Shimona. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for choosing to spend your time and energy with us. If you enjoyed tuning in, would you be ever so kind and leave a comment if you're at the Studio Artinject blog or watching this on YouTube? And if you're joining from any of the podcast apps, do consider leaving a review. Your feedback will help us grow, and your encouragement will motivate us to continue creating valuable content. Also, I've created a great resource for creators that I think you'll find really valuable. A short audio series called Mindset Magic for Aligned Action, which introduces you to the concept of mindset and how you can use it to create magic in your life. I will leave the link to this resource along with all things discussed in today's episode in the description. Until next time, keep dreaming big and beautiful dreams. Signing off with love.